Hello, YouTube. I will present today information from a very interesting source about one of the underwater encounter episodes that I have described before. I'll tell you who the source is at the end of the video or towards the end. He's qualified enough to ponder such matters. Now, the question is why and what hasn't he told us about it? You see, for a long time in the imagination of people, the oceans of the world were inhabited by various monsters, sea serpents, and different beasts. However, after humans began to actively explore the sea and the oceans, it became clear that monsters do not get in the way of ships very often, and yet the undoubted charm that such legends evoke in us did not allow them to disappear into the abyss of history. Stories about fantastic creatures that allegedly sometimes still attack ships, yachts, and even battleships have taken their rightful place among the other urban legends, and especially strong interest is aroused by those of them in which it is told that sea monsters attack even submarines. They claim that mysterious sea creatures really do not like to be disturbed in their dark, cold depths. Let's recall at least one very interesting case described by possible eyewitnesses of such events: monsters and Germans. One of the most famous reports about the alleged attack of a sea monster on a submarine dates back to the First World War. In those years, German submariners gloomily lurked all over the Atlantic, trying to create problems for their enemies. However, one of these boats, which had the number UB-85, itself once had problems. They found her on April 30, 1918. The story goes that this submarine was discovered on the surface by the British patrol boat Coreopsis. In those days, submarines were a fairly new and dangerous weapon. They were invisible, deadly killers of naval vessels. So for the British, such a find was very successful. They immediately fired at the submarine and it began to sink, without trying to revenge in any way on the British. The situation became even more strange when the British vessel approached the sinking boat, and its crew quickly surrendered without any resistance. The British sailors were quite puzzled. Where has it been seen that an elusive submarine just waited until it was sunk and its crew was detained without any difficulties? It all looked stunningly strange. It was only when the Germans were brought on board and the captain of the submarine, Captain Günther Kretsch, was interrogated that the reason for this behavior became more or less clear, although it turned out to be very bizarre. Kretsch informed the British that the submarine surfaced at night in order to recharge the batteries. During this procedure, there was a strong splash from the port side. When Kretsch and other crew members decided to see what was going on there, an unknown creature suddenly jumped out of the cold, dark water. The captain described it as a strange beast. The monster began to climb up the side of the ship, and this led to the rocking of the ship. The beast was huge. It had a small head with large eyes set deep in a horned skull and a large mouth with sharp teeth that glittered in the moonlight. The crew members were afraid that the submarine would continue to tilt under the weight of the creature until the open hatch was in the sea. And so they started shooting at the mysterious attacking animal. However, this thing refused to let go of the submarine. The intensity of the fire had to be increased, and only after some time after that, the monster detached itself from the side of the submarine. Then it disappeared into the depths of the sea. Its further fate is unknown. Myth or truth? Checking the condition of the submarine showed that the plates of the front part of the hull were damaged, and the submarine cannot go underwater again. That's why the Germans were hanging helplessly on the surface. The crew of the boat, tired and scared, did not want to fight when the British vessel discovered them, and the crew was almost grateful that their enemies had saved them. Undoubtedly, this is a very mysterious and dramatic story. However, interestingly enough, the British official report on the UB-85 incident does not contain any information about the mysterious creature. It says UB-85. The commander is Captain Kretsch. On April 30, she was sunk by the Coreopsis boat. The crew was removed before the boat sank. Several hypotheses have been proposed as to why no monsters are mentioned in the report. One of the hypotheses is that the British Navy, perhaps for some reason, tried to hide the real circumstances of this incident. It is also possible that the British simply did not believe the nonsense of the German captain, or the message about the sea monster was completely fabricated later. This story has very little real evidence to back it up, and indeed, it is quite possible that this is just another urban legend. That is just a fairy tale embellished over the years. This information comes from the often quoted Sergei, who is a programmer and engineer, probably at one time an operative in the very secretive, very interesting Russian space intelligence agency, graduate of the prestigious Space Forces Academy, an all-around very intelligent guy. Why he is interested in this old case about the submarine that was allegedly sunk by a mysterious beast from the depths of the ocean, I don't know. But let's not stop here. I mean, there is a reason he brought up this story, and the Russians may know a little bit more about what the old English documents contained. After all, they have had very successful intelligence operations on the British soil. I don't know, but here is what I want to tell you now. Let me add to Sergei's story. According to an article in 2016 issue of International Business Times, a German U-boat that, according to maritime folklore, was abandoned after being attacked by a sea monster has been discovered off the coast of Scotland. The World War I submarine was found by engineers placing subsea cables submerged off the Galloway coast. The vessel is believed to be UB-85, which, according to official records, was sunk by Her Majesty's ship Coreopsis in 1918. However, according to naval folklore, the vessel suffered a far stranger fate, with the crew reportedly claiming they abandoned the vessel after it was attacked by a sea monster. On being rescued by Coreopsis, the vessel's captain, Captain Kretsch, reportedly described how the vessel was attacked by a beast with large eyes set in a horny sort of skull, with teeth that could be seen glistening in the moonlight. Well, just like Sergei said, he claimed the vessel was so damaged in its battle with the monster, it could no longer submerge. It was found floating on the surface of the sea by Her Majesty's ship Coreopsis. Dr. Ines McCartney, a marine archaeologist who helped identify the largely intact wreckage, told the BBC news agency that evidence suggested it was a UB third-class submarine, of which we know of two which were lost in the sea, the more famous UB-85 and its sister boat UB-82. However, Dr. McCartney said legends of a sea monster attack arose as a result of secrecy surrounding the first campaign against submarine warfare and of journalists and ex-Navy men talking late at night after having a nice time. He added, "I don't think it was a sea monster. I like the idea of Nessie doing her bit for the war effort, but in reality, the real sea monster was the U-boat. He then told the Guardian newspaper, "You've got to remember that after the war, the records were sealed, but there were all these people with some connection to British intelligence who yearned to boast of mighty deeds at sea, but couldn't tell the true stories. The true sea monsters of the First World War were the submarines themselves." And McCartney also confirmed it was a UB-3 class submarine, but there are two which it could be. The more famous UB-85 or its sister boat UB-82. While I can conclude that this wreck is likely to be one or the other, they would practically be impossible to tell apart aside from the numbers painted on them in service. Now obviously long gone, he said in the Scottish Energy News statement. Unless a diver can find a shipyard stamp, we cannot say definitely, but yes, we're certainly closer to solving the so-called mystery of UB-85 and the reason behind its sinking, whether common mechanical failure or something that is less easily explained. The discovery was made by engineers involved in the Western Link project to lay a subsea power line between Ayrshire and the Wirral, which will supply Scottish renewable energy to England and Wales. The wreckage was found 120 miles northwest of the center of the planned route for the cables and of the Stranraer coast. It measures about 45 meters. Germany's U-boat campaign targeted merchant vessels transporting food and other supplies to the British Isles and are believed to have sunk almost 5,000 ships over the course of the 1914-1918 conflict. As for the sightings of the sea monsters near Scotland in the past, because I'm sure they have sighted something similar, I suggest you all visit the Scottish Maritime Museum. They have an event, Sea Monsters, an exploration of both real and mythical creatures. So, residing off the coast of Scotland, as well as those that are believed to lurk in oceans around the world, art, science, and history are combined. I believe there are two branches, Irvine Museum and Dumbarton Museum. Maybe they know something too about this incident, and maybe you can learn something else about the strange creatures that lurk in our oceans. And I want to tell you something about encounters with submarines. If you have a chance to read my book, Russia's USO Secrets, you'll find also very interesting encounters and reports from the no-nonsense Navy people. So I'm sure you would be interested to see if there are any contacts with submarines too. And of course, you can watch my videos. There's a whole lot in my channel about the so-called USOs, unidentified submersible objects, and other mysteries in our oceans, from Mariana Trench to the strange waters of the Sea of Охотsk and so forth. If you can support my research, please do so. You'll find how to do it in descriptions to this video. Please tell others about my channel. Please subscribe to it. Please like my videos. Thank you very much for your attention to my work.